The XDefiant open beta is finally here, which means a lot of new players are coming to the game. So I know you guys are looking for the best settings to use for XDefiant. So in today's video, that's what we're going to be going over. We're going to be going over the settings that you should be using for XDefiant for controller settings and just overall settings for XDefiant. I got the chance to play the closed alpha back in like August of 2021, and then I also got a chance to play the closed beta. So I've been messing with settings ever since both of those, games came out. Before we get into this video, if you guys find it helpful in any way, shape, or form, and you guys want to make your way back for more XDefiant content like this, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Only takes a couple of seconds to do both those things. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into these XDefiant settings. All right, so going over the settings here, starting off with the gameplay and UI tab, which is kind of just overall settings for XDefiant. One thing with the gameplay and UI settings here, it says it's locked to mouse and keyboard, but I've been going into games with controller and my controller has worked just fine. So if you guys are worried that it's not going to work for like controllers or anything like that because the settings locked, you're perfectly fine. Just go in with whatever input you're using. So starting with the gameplay and UI settings and just overall settings for XDefiant, starting with field of view, I have this set to 120 currently. Now this is really just personal preference, play with whatever FOV you want to, but I recommend going, just between like maybe 110 to like 120 if you guys are comfortable with that. Now a lot of these settings I will kind of compare to Call of Duty, so sorry if that gets a little repetitive here, but this is one that I am going to compare. This is ADS field of view. If you guys are familiar with Call of Duty's like affected field of view, this is actually the same thing. Consistent is the same thing as the affected field of view, and really everything else here I actually believe I kept the same. ADS behavior hold, instant, melee during ADS no, aiming interrupts reload yes, crouch behavior toggle, and sprint behavior tap. Now with this game there isn't any sort of like auto tac sprint or any tac sprint feature or anything like that, so I actually have auto sprint set to no, but if you guys like that feeling you might want to turn this to yes if you guys really like that, but I have this set to no currently. Sprint interrupt reloads, this is kind of like I would assume reload cancel in a way. I think this is set to no for default. I think I like yes a little bit more, so that's really just kind of a personal preference thing if you want to change that. And everything else I believe is kind of kept the same here on for these last few settings. Slide behavior tap, auto reload weapon yes, yes, no, and no for walk behavior. Adjust HUD limits, so this is obviously like the information on your screen. Now I actually was setting this to 0 at first, but 0 is a little bit squished in and looks kind of funky in a way. I recommend going with like between 60 and 70 or maybe even 50 for horizontal and vertical. That kind of looks more like the Call of Duty 0 in my opinion, but I think it makes it a lot easier to see things if everything is kind of squished in a little bit closer, but 0 is a little bit too much. With these last few settings, I think the only thing I changed around was to show my FPS and ping here. I kept everything else the same, meters, just because I think that's how it is for most of other games like Call of Duty, things like that. And then yeah, everything else I believe I kept the same. I think damage numbers I actually turned off here. This is where whenever you get a hit marker, it shows like how much damage you actually did. If you really want that information, keep that on, but I turned it off and it just make it look a little bit more cleaner to see enemies and things like that while you're shooting at them, of course. Going over the mouse and keyboard settings, I haven't really dabbled too much into mouse and keyboard, but these are the settings I use personally, and I believe I play on a 1600 DPI, but really just changes up to your liking. This is all kind of personal preference, and there really isn't anything to kind of point out here. Just change it to match other FPS games that you play if you really want to, but I think I kept everything mostly default here, except obviously changing the mouse sensitivity. Controller is the one that I play on and most people will play on, so I'll be going a little more in depth with the controller settings here. Button layout is set to brawler. This is basically like tactical for Call of Duty, so if you guys are looking for that tactical setting, this is it right here. This is brawler. Melee is circle, crouch is R3. Stick layout default, aim assist standard. If there's only standard and disabled, you really obviously want to turn this on to standard, and just don't mess with any of these graphs here. Just keep these the same. Explaining aim response curves type, standard is just like standard in Call of Duty, linear is like linear in Call of Duty, and this is dynamic aim response curve type. So if you're looking for dynamic and you're used to that in Call of Duty, this is it, reverse S curve. Now getting into the sensitivity is this ADS sensitivity multiplier for low zoom. This is going to be more of like your smaller optics like red dots and just iron sights and things like that. Obviously you want to keep this a little bit lower. That's just what I like personally. I have this set to 0.7, and then ADS sensitivity multiplier for high zoom. This is like sniper scopes. I really haven't touched this much and haven't really messed with snipers that much, but I'm going to just keep this at 0.85 and we'll adjust to my liking. But I really have been only using ARs and SMGs. Invert horizontal axis, no. Invert vertical axis, no. And then horizontal and vertical sensitivities. This is the big one here. This is just your overall, just general sensitivity for your controller. To find your perfect sensitivity, I would honestly go into the firing range and crank these up to 100. Yes, 100, which is just the max sensitivity 80, and then turn it down, you know, to like 170 or like 50 and then 40. But I wouldn't go anything past like low 30s or anything like that. I feel like that's just like way too slow, but that might just be me. It's just maybe a personal thing, but I'm rocking 50-50 currently. I might turn these down to like higher 40s, but I'm gonna keep these at 50-50 for now. Now this game does have dead zone settings here in the game for your left and right sticks, so I would go into the firing range, leave your controller alone. If you see any sort of movement like left, right, or like forward and back, obviously adjust these, you know, to lower or higher if you need to. And the controller vibration is set to off. I just don't. That's a personal thing. I don't like playing with vibration. Now with audio, this is also kind of like a personal thing too. You know, all of our audio settings are different. We all use different, you know, headsets like Astros, Razors, HyperXs, or whatever. So really just adjust these, but you really want to focus on the SFX volume. That's going to be just your kind of like your gun sounds, footsteps, and things like that. Make sure this is always higher, and make sure your dialogue is always a little bit lower than your SFX volume, so that the like operators are talking in game are, you know, over the SFX volume. My UI and music volumes are usually set here to like 15 and 10, but I'm turning them down for the video. That's just for the video, you know, turn those off if you really want to. And everything else here, I believe I kept the same for now. I'll just kind of adjust these when I use like voice chat and things like that. I haven't really used voice chat yet, but make sure everything, your output and input, are set to your default microphones. Now going over the graphics, I'm not gonna like go over each one by one. I'm just gonna kind of point out the ones that I kind of changed around here. Window full screen, you know, I would recommend going with window full screen or go with just normal full screen. I just use window full screen so I can just alt tab easier out of the game. Reflex low latency is set to enabled, and brightness and contrast, all of this really is just kept the same. So now on the graphics tab, didn't really change much here except for graphic quality custom, because we are changing, you know, things and, you know, customizing things. VSync mode is off and frame rate limit is turned off. And then kind of scrolling down here, most of my settings are set to medium and low, but, you know, adjust them how you want to. If you want your game to look visually better, you know, definitely go ahead and do that by changing like the shadow quality and things like that. But I think medium and low, the game still looks really, really good. Resolution scales, make sure that's set to 100. Mine was set to like 50 before, or like 75, I think. So make sure that is set to 100 when you are playing. Sharpening, I set that to 10, so my game looks a little bit sharper, and everything else is set to low here. What else did I change? Oh yeah, object detail. This is kind of a different one here. Mine has been set to like 60 to 100, and I think the game looks the same with whatever setting it's set to, but I recommend not going to 0 because, you know, you don't want your game to look that bad. Keep it like 50 to 100 is what I would do, and then everything else is just kept the same. Streaming distance 10, and yeah, lens flare off, low, off, and medium. Language and accessibility tab, there really isn't anything too crazy to go over here. There is colorblind mode if you guys want to change that around. I haven't really dabbled with that much yet personally. That's just, you know, how I just want my game to look, you know, normal in my eyes, but, you know, adjust these to your liking, you know, if you really need to. And then account and network, there isn't much here. It's just crossplay, yes or no. Keep it on yes if you are a real gamer. And that is it. That is all the settings we got for the beta so far. If they change around anything, I'll leave it in the comments in a pinned comment down below, but that's all the settings we get so far here. If you guys enjoyed this video, find it helpful, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are brand new, and I'll catch y'all later. Take care, everybody.